Weld lines, also called knit lines, form when two plastic melt fronts meet inside a mold. Depending on how those melt fronts interact, weld lines can affect both the appearance and the strength of the final part, creating visible surface marks and in some cases critical weak points. In today's key question review, we'll see how Moldex3D predicts not only where the weld lines will form, but also how they will look and how strong they'll be before the part is ever molded in reality. Weld lines in Moldex3D will show up under the filling results. We'll go to filling and then weld line. I can see where the weld lines will be on the final molded part. These will be represented by red lines displayed on the mesh pattern. So if I show the mesh lines here, we'll see that it does follow the mesh pattern. So if I wanted a more precise representation of where these weld lines would be placed, I could increase the number of nodes across my part. That being said, locationally, we can understand where these weld lines will be, but this overlay doesn't show us necessarily how those weld lines were formed. To show this, I can go to my melt front time results. Then in the melt front time, I can overlay the weld lines onto this display. I'll go to the display tab. Over on the right side, I can go to molding defect and weld line. This will overlay the weld lines onto the melt front time. And so now I can use my typical melt front progression to understand how those melt fronts are converging, where the meeting point is, and ultimately how those melt fronts are interacting with one another after the weld line is initially formed. From an animation perspective, if I wanted to see how the melt fronts are coming around this feature, you can use in the animation toolbar, you can use the left and right sides of the slider to home in on where you want the animation to run. So for example, if I'm at 72% right when the weld line forms, I can change the minimum to let's say 65% and the maximum to let's say 80%. And so now when I press the play button, it will just show me the melt fronts converging in a little bit higher resolution of an animation than I would normally get in the default display. You can also do the same thing when you export an animation. So if you wanted to export the animation of this, you can go to video, and then these same controls on the extents will show up there. The definition of a weld line in Moldex3D is when the two melt fronts are coming together at less than 145 degrees. This is when the mechanical strength is noticeably reduced. And so in Moldex3D, the red lines that we see are dependent on the weld line meeting angle. This is actually a result item that we can go to. And so right under the weld line result is weld line meeting angle. This will place a color display on top of the weld lines to show us the angle at which the melt fronts came together. You can see the maximum on the scale here is 145 degrees. And in 2026, we're excited to announce that you'll be able to dynamically adjust this value. Rather than just changing this value here, you'll actually be able to adjust the value from this right-click menu, and that will recalculate the weld line meeting angle result and the other subsequent weld line results accordingly. But with this result, we can still see where the weakest point on a weld line is going to be. The strength of a weld line is dictated by the ability of the polymer chains on either melt front to interact with one another. If those polymer chains are able to entangle, that will create a much stronger interaction between those melt fronts. Whereas if those two melt fronts just come up to one another and bond, it's going to be easy to separate those melt fronts after the part is completely molded. So in this case, the ability of the melt fronts to interact is going to be dictated by the angle at which the melt fronts come together. If the melt fronts come together head on, meaning that the melt fronts just kind of one melt front comes this way, one melt front comes this way, and they meet head on at one single point, that would be a 0-degree weld line angle. And in that case, those two melt fronts are just going to hit one another and then spread out along the weld line. The polymer chains on that initial interaction are not going to entangle with one another, and therefore the mechanical strength at that location is going to be relatively low. As the melt fronts progress along this weld line, you can see that the angle gradually increases until we get to the threshold of 145 degrees. And as that angle opens up, those polymer chains are able to interact with one another a little bit better, and the weld line strength increases as a result. So the weakest point on this weld line is always going to be where the lowest angle interaction is located, which is usually where the melt fronts initially meet. The next result item that we have at our disposal is the weld line temperature result. Weld line temperature is an indication of the average temperature of the melt fronts as they contacted one another. Just like with the weld line meeting angle, the strength of a weld line is dependent on the ability of the polymer chains to interact with one another. If the plastic is at a higher temperature, the polymer chains are vibrating faster, which allows them to pass by one another a little bit easier, and this will give more opportunity for entanglement, and therefore a higher weld line temperature is going to be stronger than a lower weld line temperature. Whereas the weld line meeting angle allowed us to see where the weak point is on a particular weld line, usually this weld line temperature is more of an indicator of how weld lines are comparing to one another. So for example, we have three obvious weld lines on this part geometry. We have one over here, we have one here, and then we have one here. So I can use the relative temperature of each of these weld lines to understand what the relative strengths are going to be between these different weld lines depending where they're placed along the progression of flow. You can use your scale to exaggerate that difference a little bit better. And so in this case, I can see that this weld line down here is quite a bit hotter than the weld lines that are closer to the gate. An interesting interaction that we will investigate in a future key question review. It's also important to note in this result item the context of the scale. In this case, we're only looking at a 250.9 degrees to 258.7 degrees difference between all the weld lines in our parts. This is only an 8 degrees difference, so while this indicates a relative variation in weld line strength, that variation is actually quite low across the entire part geometry and across these weld lines specifically. Another result item that we have at our disposal is what we call the particle tracer. The particle tracer can be launched from the weld lines whenever they're formed, and it will track how these particles are moving after the weld line was initially formed. So when the weld line is formed, we place a point there, and then we just track that point as it progresses with the flow front. When the weld line is initially formed, the polymers that were initially on that weld line are not just going to stay there, they are going to move along the length of flow. That's what we're trying to understand here is how long visibly that weld line could show on the surface of the part. Now the particles themselves, we can play an animation of this particle tracer, understanding how these particles are moving throughout the geometry after the weld line is formed. And we can see that for all of the particles throughout our part, not only the ones that are around a specific location. Although if I wanted to, I could isolate a region like this, and then it would only show the particles in this area. Now the particles themselves are actually not that interesting here. What we'd be more interested in is how those particles are moving as a history throughout the geometry rather than just the individual points themselves. So what I can do is right click on the particle tracer flow length and hit drawn by a line instead of drawn by point. And that will give me a history of where the particles started from and where they ended up in the part geometry after the fill is completed. Furthermore, we can actually trace what elements these particles traveled through. And so if I use the weld surface result, we get a more visual description of what elements that particle traveled through, and that will be a better visual indicator of how long that weld line could show on the part surface. You can use this as a relative indicator from iteration to iteration to understand how maybe the melt temperature, fill speed, and any other processing conditions, maybe even different material conditions, could impact the length of this weld line. This is a new feature in 2025, and we're looking to expand the capability of this result item by allowing you to export the information directly from this result data. The last result item that I'd like to show here is fiber orientation. Fiber orientation, as it turns out, dictates a lot about the weld line strength for filled materials. If I go to filling, fiber, and then fiber orientation, we'll be able to understand how the particles around that weld line are interacting with one another and how heavily they might be dictating the strength of the weld line. In the case down here, we can see how those fibers are oriented along the surface. This will dictate the strength of the weld line heavily for these filled materials. Now, all of these items that I've shown throughout Moldex3D are just indicators of weld line strength. Moldex3D, as a linear mechanical solver, does not allow us to visualize failure of the final molded part depending on loading conditions. And so instead of running the mechanical analysis in Moldex3D, we have a way that we can translate this data from Moldex3D over to FEA, or a structural analysis such as ANSYS or Abacus. This is going to be done through the FEA interface, and you can watch the FEA interface video here for a more detailed breakdown of how the interaction of this FEA interface looks like with the structural solvers. But here I'm going to focus specifically on how we can translate the data for weld lines over to FEA, because there's two different methodologies, whether we're using a filled material or an unfilled material. For a filled material, the weld line strength is going to be heavily dictated by the fiber orientation throughout your geometry. And for that reason, we can simply just export the information over to a composite material analysis software such as Digimat or Converse. They can run that composite analysis, and then the output from that would be the input into your structural solver. This will create a reduction of the modulus information around the weld lines and around the rest of the part, depending on the fiber orientation and other molding properties. That's how we would export the information for a filled material. For an unfilled material, we would prefer to output the weld line information based on the stress strain curve. While we don't record the stress strain curve information in Moldex3D, because most of the time we are dealing in the linear range of the stress strain curve, we do have a definition down at the bottom of the FEA interface for an unfilled material. If you have a filled material, we'll always go through Digimat or Converse. But with an unfilled material, you'll have the ability to input your stress strain information. So here we have our yield strength, tangent modulus, and ultimate strength. Yield strength is when we transition from the linear range of the stress strain curve to the nonlinear range. Tangent modulus is the slope, relatively, of that nonlinear region, like an average slope. And then ultimate strength is the highest point on the stress strain curve. So you can input these values directly, and the output from this would be a reduction of the modulus distribution in the final file that we're sending over to the FEA solver. Thank you for watching this key question review. If you have any topics that you'd like to see discussed in the future, you can leave a comment down below. If you'd like to see videos like this in the future, you can subscribe to get notified of when new videos are posted. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.